Hello, I'm Sarah. Welcome to your yoga lesson. So today we're going to be focusing on how to find comfort in your seated yoga postures. The idea for this lesson came following a conversation with a friend of mine who told me that if she does a recorded yoga lesson, she will always fast forward through the first few minutes because she just can't find comfort in any of the seated yoga postures. So if you feel the same way, or you always sit in the same seated yoga posture and you're interested in finding other ways to sit because they all have benefits, then hopefully you're going to get something out of this lesson today. So we're going to be practicing for about 15 to 18 minutes, so not very long. You will notice behind me that I have some props. So I've got some cushions, and also I've got my yoga cushions. So my cushions are just off the sofa. This is my yoga cushion. I've got a blanket, and also I've got a couple of yoga blocks and a book as well, a big thick hardback book. I'm well aware that many of you practicing at home probably don't have yoga blocks, possibly don't even have a yoga mat. You don't need a yoga mat, it's fine. You can sit on your carpet. If you're on a hard floor like this one, then you might want to put a rug or a blanket underneath you. The aim here is to find comfort. There are no awards for sitting in discomfort. And also, if you're uncomfortable, you won't be able to focus on your yoga practice. Remember that the underlying principles of yoga are to use the posture and the breath to help to calm the mind. And maybe you don't feel like your mind needs calming, although I think we can all benefit from that. We all have times in our life when that voice in our head, our mind, is chattering away to us too much, and being able to notice that and do something about it can definitely help us to feel better. So if you don't have these things to hand, you might want to pause the video and go and find them and then come back with whatever you found. Okay, so just a few things about seated yoga practice and what we're looking for. So when we sit in our yoga practice, what we're trying to look for is to find a way to respect the natural curves of the back. So we're not looking for some idea of alignment that involves me being perfectly straight, because our spines aren't perfectly straight. If we think about our pelvis and then moving up our spine towards our lower back, where our lumbar spine is, the back naturally curves in just above the bottom. And then as we move up the back towards the thoracic region, that's around here, around where the shoulder blades are, the back curves out again slightly. And then we move further up to the back of the neck, the cervical region, and that area curves back in again. So we have the bottom, a slight curve in, a slight curve out, and then another curve in. Of course, I'm saying slight, but those curves may be quite big in you. Some people have really quite a big curve in their lower lumbar spine, in their lower spine, in the lumbar spine. And that's just natural for them. And what we're looking for is for you to find a way to respect your own body and to be able to sit with the minimal muscular effort. Tension in the body creates tension in the mind. Tension in the mind creates tension in the body. It's a vicious circle. And you won't be able to focus on your yoga practice if you're uncomfortable in your seated position. So in order to be able to respect those natural curves, one of the things we can do is make sure that the pelvis is lifted above the knees. And you can see here that my pelvis is not lifted above my knees. And I'm having to work quite hard in my hip flexors here to keep myself upright. The posture that is right for me may well not be right for you. We'll all have a favourite seated posture. Most of us will do, unless we're super flexible. And similarly, the posture that's right for you may not be right for me. And on a day-to-day basis, you may find that one posture feels more comfortable than another. Respect that. It doesn't matter. Don't listen to the ego telling you that we have to be good and perfect at everything, because that's just not the case. Okay. So what we're looking for is a posture that provides us with alignment. And if we can find alignment, then we can relax, and then we can develop resilience, and that means the ability to be able to stay in that seated posture. So I'm going to start off today sitting cross-legged. So I have my cushion here, I'm going to turn sideways so you can see my pelvis. Now if I sit on my yoga cushion, and you're a bit of a funny angle for this, so you possibly can't see terribly well, but I don't think that is high enough for me to be able to get my pelvis above my knees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my blanket here, I'm going to fold that up, and I'm just going to place that underneath my bottom, and that's just going to lift me up a little bit further. Notice that I'm sitting towards the front edge of my prop there, whatever you're sitting on. I'm sitting towards the front edge, and that is going to help my pelvis to tilt forwards, and that helps that natural curve in the lower back to happen. Sitting cross-legged is demanding on the hips, the rotation required in the hips, the bend required in the knees, and the position of the ankle and the toes. And while I'm chatting away here, I hope that you are working on finding your way to be propped up sufficiently for you. That may mean that you're propped up quite a lot. If you are, it really does not matter. Over time, you'll be able to reduce the height of those props. So, whenever we come to a seated posture in yoga, we just spend a few moments just checking in on ourselves and just seeing how we're feeling. So usually what I would do is I would just close my eyes and start to take some breaths in and out through the nose, some nice slow breaths. Now, if this place of sitting is not feeling right for you, if you are finding that you just cannot focus, and particularly if you're finding you're getting any discomfort around the knees, remember, if you don't have the opening for your hips, you will be putting excess force on your knees. Pain in knees definitely has to be listened to. Okay, some gentle discomfort in the hips, in the back, in the feet or the ankles, we can work with that. If it's screaming pain, definitely move. But in the knees, we need to listen to that, because knees, we have to respect them, we need to look after them, and we definitely shouldn't be twisting them or bending them really in any other direction apart from backwards and forwards. So if that way of sitting is not comfortable for you, bring your feet out in front of you. We're looking for roughly a 90-degree angle at the knee, but there's no hard and fast rule about this. Just play around with it a little and see if you can find a way for you to be a little bit more comfortable. Maybe you need to move. We talk about looking for stillness in our seated postures, but that doesn't mean we're looking for rigidity or tension or immobility. The more you practice yoga, the more tuned in you will become with yourself, and the more you will notice these small adjustments that the body continually makes to try to find comfort. And maybe you just want to sway from side to side a little bit. I'm going to turn around so you can see that a little bit better. Maybe you just want to just move slightly from side to side. Or maybe coming backwards and forwards a little. Just bringing the chin down to the chest. And just generally wriggling around a bit on your sit bones until you can settle somewhere in the midst of all of that feels right for you. And if you need to start moving again and wriggling around again, then that's absolutely fine. And what we can then do is just do some simple movements, some simple postures while we're in this seated position. So I'm just going to place my left hand onto my right leg, and I'm going to turn and look over my right shoulder. And I keep my shoulders down. I breathe in and out through my nose. If that's okay for you, then that's the traditional way to breathe in yoga. And then we come back through the centre and move in the other direction. And I'm not pulling on my leg with my hand, I'm just using the muscles in my back to make that turn. And then I come back through the centre and I just give my shoulders a little roll. And I reach up with one hand and I come over into a side bend, and I'm not leaning heavily onto this lower hand. I'm trying to find a way to get length through the side of the body. I'm keeping that top shoulder back. And then I come back through the centre and I lower that hand and I reach up with the other hand and I come over in the other direction once again. I keep that top shoulder back to find myself rolling forwards. And I look for length through the side of the body, and I notice if one side feels different to the other. And then I come back to the centre and I lower my hand and I roll my shoulders again. And then we're going to look at the second seated posture. I'm going to take my padding out from underneath my bottom, and we'll use a cushion this time. So the next posture we're going to practice is Dandasana. So that is otherwise known as the staff posture. Oh, just for clarification, the last posture in cross-legged, that's Sukhasana. So this is Dandasana. You don't need to remember the names, but you might hear them in yoga classes sometimes. So I'm sitting with my legs straight out in front of me. They're not ramrod straight together, but I've got them straight in front of me, not much of a gap between them. And this posture, you will notice that here my pelvis is roughly in line with my knees. So because my pelvis isn't above my knees, there's much more of a tendency in this posture to do this. Okay. It's quite hard work to sit respecting those natural curves in the back, the curve in towards the lower back, the lumbar spine, out towards the thoracic spine, and then back in again towards the cervical spine. So I'm going to put a cushion underneath my bottom just to lift my bottom up a little. And even that cushion sitting towards the front of it just helps me to tilt my pelvis forwards a little bit. That naturally happens without me really trying. I probably could do with another cushion actually, so I'm just going to put another cushion underneath the bottom, just to lift me up a little bit further. And then definitely I can start to feel that my pelvis is tilting forwards, and this posture just feels a little bit more comfortable for me. Okay, be careful that you're not over forcing your pelvis forwards. If you do, you'll start to feel some crunching up in your lower back. It will start to feel discomfort if you've got too much of a curve in your lower back. So just really focusing in on that and taking a moment to get it right for you. So the other thing to add, if you are propped up on quite a few cushions, is that then the concern is about the knees. Because if the knees are if there's a big gap underneath the knees, there is a risk that your knees could be bending in the wrong direction. Knees do not like bending that way. It's called hyperextension. Knees like bending this way. So if you are on quite a few blocks or cushions, whatever you're using, and your knees aren't supported, then it's a good idea to get a blanket and put them underneath your knees. Before I started to train to be a yoga teacher, I didn't used to use any props. And then the fantastic tutors who trained me to be a yoga teacher, they use props. And they've been practicing yoga for many, many years, and they use those props to help them find comfort in their seated yoga practice so that they can focus on their yoga. And if they can do it, then we definitely can. Okay, so we just focus on taking some slow breaths in and out through the nose. You might want to close your eyes. And once again, you might want to just wriggle around just a little bit. From side to side, maybe. Just allowing yourself to slump, allowing the pelvis to roll backwards so the tailbone goes down towards the ground, and then sitting more rigidly upright, sticking the bottom out, feeling that tension in the lower back when you've got too much of a curve. And then finding a place in the middle there where the comfort is good for you. You may want to sit with your back against a sofa or a wall. If you need to, that's fine. Over time with practice, you'll be able to move away from the wall. I'm going to stay in this position, and we're just going to move through those simple movements that we did before. So a simple spinal twist, placing the left hand onto the right leg, and then turning and looking over the shoulder. I'm not pulling with the hand, I'm just using the muscles in the back to make that turn. And then I'm coming through the centre, and all the while I'm trying to breathe in and out through my nose, if that feels okay for me, and then I turn and look over the other shoulder. Once again, using the muscles in the back, keep the shoulders down, free of tension, and back to the centre, reaching up with the left hand and over to the side, into my side bend. Keep both sit bones down on the mat, keep the top shoulder back, and back to the centre, lower the hand and over in the other direction. And then back to the centre, lower that hand, roll out the shoulders, And then we're going to move on to our next seated posture. So this is a wide-legged seated posture. So similar to the one we just practiced, but the legs are apart. How far apart they should be? Well, if you open them too wide, you'll start to get lots of tension through the inside of the legs, and that has some value in working on length through the inside of the legs, through the adductors. But at the moment, we're trying to focus on finding a comfortable seated posture that suits us. So I wouldn't worry too much about this. Once again, we're looking for that alignment in the spine. So this time I'm going to use my block. So I can place that underneath my bottom. And then I might need some padding under my knees, or maybe I just bend my legs slightly by pulling my heels a little bit back towards me. I think actually I'm going to get my blanket. Probably still not enough. Okay. I have to say the block is a little bit harder actually to sit on my sit bones, so I think I'll be sticking with my cushions next time. Okay, so we're going to work through that little sequence of postures again, working into a spinal twist. Left hand onto right leg, turning and looking over the shoulder. Once again, using the muscles in the back to make the turn. Shoulders down, breathing in and out through the nose. Coming back through the centre. And then moving into our side bend. So reaching up with the arm and coming over to the side, keeping the sit bones down onto the ground, down onto the mat, onto the block. Keep that top shoulder back. Look for the length through the side of the body. And back. And lower the arm and reach up and over to the side. And back and lower the hand and roll the shoulders. And then that's the third seated posture addressed. So on to the final one. So kneeling. Often demanding for a lot of us. It's very demanding on the bend in the knees, the angle required of the ankle, and the pressure that the weight puts through the feet. All of these seated postures have value in us practicing. All of them are slightly different in what they're asking out of our hips, our knees, our ankles and our feet. So, if this doesn't feel right for you, or if it feels okay for you but you start to get cramp in your feet, you can take your weight off your feet and just flex and place your toes onto the mat just to release them, and you might need to do that a few times. You could, I've got my thick book here, I could put that between my legs just to lift it's not quite enough of a lift actually. I'd need another block just to lift me up a little bit more, or I could roll up my blanket and put that between my legs, or I could use my cushions. Yeah, that feels all right for me. You may need to really stack a lot of padding up on top of each other. You may be lifted a lot higher than me, and if you are, to get that pressure off your ankles and your feet, that's absolutely fine. Over time with practice, you'll be able to lower the degree of padding. So once you've found the place that is right for you, once again, we take a few breaths in and out through the nose. As we move into our twist, looking over the shoulder, I'm not pulling on the leg with my hand. I'm using the muscles in the back to make the turn. And then I come through the centre and I move in the other direction, and all the while keeping my shoulders down, keeping the tension out of the shoulders. And then I come back to the centre and I reach up with my arm and I move over to the side. Keeping that top shoulder stacked, and coming back and lowering the hand, reaching up and over to the side again. And then back to the centre and lower roll the shoulders, and then I would suggest removing your props. Coming around onto your bottom, hands resting behind you, give your legs a little bit of a wiggle from side to side, a little bit of a roll. And as you get up from the mat, just take care, take your time. And if you're not used to this, you'll have to sort of ease your ankles and your knees back into moving into the upright. And that draws to a close our seated yoga practice for the day. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that you feel you got something out of it.